Good afternoon, everybody. Give everybody a minute here. Hey, Rosie, how are you? Hello, Linda. How are you doing? Hi, Erlene. Hope everybody's doing great today. We've got some crafty stuff to do. That's always fun. It's not too cold out here in Calgary, so that's nice. Hello, Diane. That's good. Rosie's doing great. Hello, Darlene. Picking up a kid from school for ortho. Yes. That's one of those things you have to be available for. The wind has been a little crazy, as with a Chinook, I guess. Rosie, does your kid have braces or Invisalign? I was very excited to finally finish my Invisalign, and I just have to go back tomorrow to get my retainer. Yeah, and November weather is amazing. Braces, all right. Yeah, I'm just so excited to be done, and it's so nice to have nice straight teeth, and it was, relatively quick. And I also just realized if you do have Invisalign and have the trays, that you can pick up the whitening gel from your dentist and just use those in your trays. So, a lot cheaper than getting the whole kit for whitening. Yeah, it did seem quick. I think it was about maybe a little over a year, and I'm glad to be done, but it was good. So we are going to play with these Altenew stencils today, and I thought we'd add in a little bit of hot foiling with this thank you, this pretty thank you hot foil plate. So I did the foiling and then the reverse foiling. And so I think, I think with the foiling, you have to kind of play with the papers that you have, play with whether you need a shim. And I figured out that I need to have a shim of paper and I need to get it really nice and hot. And then I feel like it works really well. Thanks. And we're going to do a little bit with some markers. And I know that there's some Altenew 3 set of markers. I don't have them here, but it's a gold, silver, and a white in the store. And if you don't have a glitter pen or a gel kind of glittery pen, that would be a good one to get. So I've used some silver. We're just going to dress up our stencils and our backgrounds a little bit and then add our hot foiling. And I thought we'd do a little splattering with the Dina Wakley sprays. So we've got the medieval. So that's this beautiful dark silver. So I use the splatters on it. And then the background layering piece. And then for the gold, hello Preeti, we've got the gilt, and that goes around the edge, and then the splatters. Thanks, Rosie, for linking there. And then we've also got some glitter paste or glimmer paste. This is the Moonstone one. This is a good one to have if you want to use it over any type of color. It just is so pretty and it has this iridescent quality. The new Mama Elephant Valentine release, we can all certainly check on that, Preeti. Maybe Rosie, if you can just ask Sandy and then we'll know. And if you don't find out while we're live, then I'll get back to you on that. So we will play around with these, just do some fun things with them. We've got the matte gold foil. This is really pretty. This is the Spellbinders Glimmer. No problem. And then this is that cute little thank you hot foil plate from Pink Fresh. And then I also have the hot foil plate, the solid one, and I know Spellbinders has a solid one as well, or a couple different shapes of solid. I kind of like this because it's pretty large and it will do a large background as well. Thank you so much, Preeti. So we're going to use that, and I found with this one that you really need it to be hot. And I also have found that the paper that works best for me is the Hammer Mill cardstock, and it has a little chameleon on it. So I actually picked some up from Amazon, but it just works really well. And I'll just show you a picture, because if you don't have the right cardstock, it just seems like you're not going to get a really great impression with the hot foiling. And I think if you have the hot foils machine, let's see here. My stomach is growling, even though I literally just ate lunch. Okay, I'm obviously photo impaired when it comes to looking on my iPad. Recents. Okay, here we go. Usually I'm like, ask my kids, where did that go? So this was the Hammer Mill color copy cover paper. And I picked it up for about $30 for a 250 pack. But it's very nice and smooth, and it seems to work really well with the foils. That's your active motor complex, not understanding how to find something on my iPad. Probably. You won the solid plate from Pink Fresh. Yeah, but yeah. So you have the solid plate, but not the foil machine. It is an investment. I really like, my digestive system. Okay. Totally off on a different track. The hot foil machine, I think it's a great, like if you want to ask for Christmas or for a birthday present or something like that, or save up for it. I didn't want to like it as much as I do, but I really like it. I feel like it's really easy and it works really nicely. And you get some really, really great effects. Stamps and dies is expensive, yes. And so it has to be something that works for you and that works with what you have. I do like that a lot of like Pink Fresh or Altenew, they'll have, like the stamps and the hot foil and the hot foil plate and then, stencils. You don't have to get all of them. If you like just the hot foil plate in a certain thing, and if it's a design that you feel like can work a few different ways, then maybe that works and not the stamp kind of thing. So, or you can mix and match. So it, definitely has to work and make sense for your budget. If it's a fun thing and someone's buying it for you, I think, on your wish list. And it can be on your wish list. And, if you want to order it in at any point, it's something that's very fun. Yeah, it is hard to get it all. I do like that lots of different companies are bringing out different hot foil plates, so it doesn't feel like, you know, if I don't get this all from this company, I'm not going to get anything. Um, you know, if there's something you really like, a design that's hot foil, then you can pick it up. And then, you know, the next release, another company will come out. I think they're here to stay. And there's lots of colors of the glimmer foil. I do like how easy it is to use. But yes, you'd have to make sure it makes sense. So I'm actually going to turn on this machine. I'm going to move, I've got my little Hero Arts handy holder. And I feel like you do need to make sure that it's, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You do need to make sure it's nice and hot. I feel like you get the best results. There are also Spellbinders has that glimmer boot camp, and then Jennifer McGuire has done lots of videos. Pink Fresh has lots of videos. So there's also lots of resources so that you can watch those things and kind of, you know, get a feeling for whether it's something you would use. So you just turn it on with the back, and then you're going to see this little power light. There is a little pamphlet that comes in the box, and it kind of guides you. When this light turns green, you put your foil plate on there. I really like to put my foil plate on now because I like it to be really nice and hot. This background will get hot. It's not hot yet. And it takes a few minutes to heat up. So then I don't worry about like jumping on it as soon as it turns green. I just kind of let it heat up. Pink Fresh has some videos as well. Okay, you have some foil to test out. I know Stacy's gonna take the foil machine for a run, and we can't wait to see what she does. So I'm moving it off to the side for a minute. It's just gonna do some heating up. I'm gonna do the same thing with the hot foil plate, and I also like that we can get that negative impression, so we're not wasting any foil at all. So this is going to be what we're going to make first, and then we're going to use it on the background and get a second use out of that foil. Diane, do you have the foil machine? Okay, so, and I have some stuff to show you guys at the end, so I don't want to forget about that. I forgot about showing you guys the tickets last time, so I want to remember to show you that and some samples that I had made. All right, so we've got some backgrounds here. I have some of this Media Grip, Tim Holtz Media Grip mat, and we're hoping that it comes back. You have the Gemini one, so it does the foiling with the Gemini machine. If this Media Grip mat comes back in, it's really great. I cut mine down to like an A2 size, but it's nice to kind of hold your papers on there. I know that Sandy has some on order, and we're really hoping that it comes back in. So it just kind of sits on your surface and stays put. So we might not do all of both cards, but okay, we've got this beautiful flower. This flower is the Vibrant Florals, and it's a 3-piece stencil. Oh, you're doing some foiling now. I love it. And then the butterfly is called Gentle Butterfly. And that's the butterfly one. Hello, Rhonda. So I think let's just start off with our Vibrant Florals, and we'll kind of see where we get. So in the corner of this stencil, you'll see they are labeled by 1, 2, and 3. You don't necessarily have to go in that order, but it's an easy way to start out. And I do like that Altenew has this really great insert that comes with their stencils. And so when you open it up, so they do have a hot foil plate that goes with this. We don't have that here, so we're not using that today. But we are kind of getting that effect with our gold glitter marker. So it's showing us that we can use a light purple here, a darker purple, and then add in our different elements, and then we end up with this beautiful floral cluster. And if you wanted to use the specific inks that they have here, you could follow this guide. I grabbed my Altenew inks in similar colors. You could use whatever inks that you have. There's also Pink Fresh has the nice 4-pack. I like that the colors are all matched and they're in each family, so blues, and so I think the Altenew and the Pink Fresh are really great for that. You can also blend with your distress inks or whatever inks you have. You haven't mastered the negative foiling. You have another brand, as Diane says, and yeah, I think you have to play around. I played around for a long time and I couldn't get it to get a good impression. And I feel like when I let it heat up extra and I use the Hammermill cardstock and a shim of paper, it seems to work. So we'll see if it works today. I also tried it on glossy cardstock that I picked up, a pack of glossy cardstock, and that seemed to work well as well because the foil sticks nicely to glossy. So if you're having trouble, you could try that. But it worked on here, so I'm hoping that it will work again. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1. And our foil machine, I'm going to move this out. So it's been green for a few minutes here. And I'm going to layer on the foil, and I just want to move this so that it's lined up with this line, because I'm going to have the thank you. I also feel like when we put it through the die cut machine, if you have it going up and down, it's going to go through nicer than if you have it across and it kind of bumps on those rollers. So if I can, I like to set it up like that. So when we put the foil on, it's going to be shiny side towards the foil plate, and the matte side is going to be towards your paper. Just want more variety. Yes, and I haven't actually tried colored cardstock, but I know I've seen it and it looks gorgeous. So you will have to tell us how your results turned out. I just pulled this out as if I'm ready to take it out, because if I lay everything on and then pull it out and it shifts a little bit, then you know, it can move things around a bit. So this is a piece of my Hammermill cardstock. And I'm just going to peek here. I don't need it to be perfectly lined up because I am going to cut around it. I just want to make sure that we're all over top. Actually, before I do that, sorry, don't dislodge it yet. It turned green. It's going to have to wait for a second to turn green again. Hello, Lorraine. So this is why we're doing it together. So it's like we turned it on and it is heating up. It's going to tell us when the platform is ready, and then I would press the timer button. It doesn't really need to do that because it did heat up quite a lot, but I'm just pressing it to show you, and then we'll pop it out. Small sentiments work, just not the negative or large images. Okay. Yeah, and I think sometimes it depends on the plate and the paper. So testing it and writing down what works for you is definitely a good idea. This is the base of our stencil, so number 1. Just move this over for a second. And we're just going to place this on our background wherever we feel it would look good. So we're going to put that down. And I'm going to add one little piece of the Spellbinders yellow craft tape, which I think is really good. Okay, our light is solid now, and I know this has been on long enough that it's nice and hot. So we're gonna take it off. If our paper had shifted any, then we would just fix it right there, but it seems to be fine. So what I found is that I have just a piece of cardstock. It's about an 80-pound piece. I put that down first. And then you want to put down your green plate. And then you put down your spacer plate, which is clear. Yeah, I need to watch more of Yana doing hers. If you wanted to, if you feel like you're really worried about it moving, you can take a piece of that tape, the yellow tape, and you can just wrap it around. And you can reuse this tape, so you're not wasting it. After you use it, you can keep it. I stick it on the top of my die cut machine, and then I can use it to hold any dies that are going through. So right now, I'm just gonna run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. And what I found worked really nicely is, I guess I could move this over here. Let me move this over so you can see, although it might shake the camera a little bit. Sometimes it's hard when we only have a little bit of space, but just so you get an idea of what I'm actually doing. See, you can see all this tape on top of my machine. So I'm running it through. I can feel that little bump when it goes past the rollers, and I'm running it back and forth. So about 4 times. And I'm doing it slowly because I do want it to be nicely pressed down. And then I can just pull this out. So basically this base that heats up is replacing any other plates. You don't need any other plates other than what we have right here. So when we pull it off, we're gonna see if it worked. Okay, so we can either just pick it up, or they do give you this nice little magnetic piece. There's 2 pieces there, so that one will stick until we put it down. Then when you press the button of that magnet, it drops. So once you press the button, it just drops it down. And then there's a little mat, a heat mat that comes with your machine. So then, look how lovely this is. Isn't that beautiful? So beautiful. And then we still have this negative piece. If I'm not going to foil it right away, I have just a little folder, and I have my scraps put in that, laid flat, because if you kind of wrinkle it up, then you're going to get a wrinkled impression when you try to foil it. But right now, we're going to put this here for a minute. Then we're going to grab our solid plate, and we're going to put this on. And this one, I think, needs to really heat up a lot. So we'll take our tape off. And then we can keep doing our background while this is heating up. So all I'm doing is I'm just sliding this back in until it clicks. And then that's going to start heating up now. Okay, so that's off to the side, and then we'll cut that after. I think too, it even depends on the hot foil plate. I found if I didn't have the shim with this, thank you, it wasn't completely foiling, but with the shim, it's great. But other plates that I've had, if I didn't have the shim, it was okay. So I think you just need to give it a little test before you, yeah, perfect foiling. I know, surprisingly, I'm live. And so, you know, when you're live, sometimes that's when everything happens, but it worked, yay. So let's get out our color. So we could do the flowers any color. I'm just kind of following this plan that they have laid out here to a degree. So I'm going to start with the lightest color. This is the pale mauve, and this one is sugar plum. I'm not sure what is in the shop, but I know if you look for ink cubes or Altenew cube, then whatever's there will come up, and the pink fresh ones as well are the same. I feel like they're the same kind of ink. Maybe I'm wrong. So I've just got a purple brush, blending brush, and I want to make sure that I don't have a whole bunch of ink that's left over and really nothing's coming off. There's a little bit of purple on there, but I don't feel like I need to wash my brushes in between. I just, if they're really inky, I'll give them a wipe on a baby wipe and then wipe them on a cloth. But I feel like it's fine. So now we're just inking up our background. Trying not to shake this too much. So my platform light, it did just come on, but I'm gonna leave it for now because that solid foil plate, it's a lot bigger than the little thank you foil plates. And I want to make sure it's nice and hot because that's what's going to work to transfer your foil. So this is the pale mauve, and we're just coloring. I love doing these floral stencils. I love the look of florals, but I do not have the patience for stamping a floral and coloring it in with like Copics. But if you give me a stencil, I could stencil all day long. So we're just blending those in. And I don't think ink blending, you don't have to be in a rush. This is a lighter color, so it takes a little bit longer. And, you know, you could do it as light or as dark as you wanted. So we'll just get all of our leaves colored in. And you could even do two flowers that were different colors if you wanted to mask something off. So you definitely have lots of options, or if you wanted to do one darker than the other one, you could do that. Okay, so that's our first layer. Now we're not going to move it yet because we're going to come in with our second darkest. So this one's amethyst. I'm not going to clean off my brush because we're just going darker. And where I'm going to add the darker spots are right around the kind of the middle of the flower. I'm adding some shading. You don't have to do this, but it's just a really easy way to add another layer of interest to your stencils. Whether you're using layering stencils or not, You can do this effect with any stencils. You're just taking your next color of ink and just kind of adding that shading in. Oh, and we don't need to put that away yet. However, our plate's been on for a little while. So what I'm going to do is put the negative, and remember the shiny part always goes towards your plate. So I'm laying the negative part of the foil. I'm laying that on, and it seems, as soon as you put the foil on the hot plate, it just seems to spread out very nicely. Then I'm layering another piece of this hammermill cardstock. And I'm going to keep it going this way, but it really doesn't matter for this one. And I'm just going to press this timer, and that will just remind me as soon as that stops flashing, I can put it right there, then I think we're probably hot enough to move it over to our die cut machine. So this is our second layer again. We're done with this one. Okay, and if you want to clean your stencils in between, you could take a wipe. I usually give them a little bit of a wipe. I'm not too worried about anything too dark. If there's quite a bit of dark staining and you don't want it to transfer when you're using different inks, you can use a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the back, and that'll just take off any residual ink. So we'll put this one to the side. And then we've got number 2. So it says in little number 2 on here. So how they've done this is they've got the second part of the flower, and then they have a little middle for this flower over here that we didn't get too much of, but we might use a little corner of it. And the other middle of the flower is in this stencil. So we'll line this up, and then we'll do our foiling, because that's, the light's off now. And I'm just lining this up. You can see really right through the stencil, so you can just line that up. This media grip too is really great for setting your ink pads on when you're stenciling. It doesn't move around. So I'm just going to carefully pull this straight out. I'm going to add on my shim of paper. I'm going to add on this green plate and then the spacer plate. And if we want to just make sure that it's not shifting around, I find as long as you go pretty slow, it doesn't really shift around. But if you want to make sure, then you just add a little bit of tape, and I'm just going to run it through. So the same way that we did that other one, we're just going back and forth and again. And you can just go really nice and slow. You don't have to rush. And then it's really pressing down in all the areas where you want it to contact. Okay. So we'll bring this over. It's a little warm. I'm not going to set it right on top of my stencil, but it is okay on this craft mat, and it's not hot. Okay, so we'll take our plates and our shim there off. Now we could grab a little pair of tweezers just so we don't burn ourselves, because that plate is hot. And now, look how beautiful Isn't that so nice? And there was a couple little spots. I don't think this has to be like perfection. I think that's pretty perfect. Hi, Julie. How are you doing? So isn't that gorgeous? So then we've got the negative and the positive. And this is what's left of your foil. So you don't have to feel like you're wasting anything. I think that the plates are, or the solid plates are a really good investment if you've got the hot foil machine. So we don't have to do any more today. So we're just going to turn that off on the back and set that aside, and that will just cool. Okay, and so we're on to our second darkest. Yeah, I was having a lot of trouble, Diane, until I added that shim and let it heat up extra. So try those steps and see if you get better results. So this is our second darkest ink in that purple. Now sometimes you have some really small little areas like this one here that's kind of, it's not even I think maybe it was attached, but it came off. And all I'm going to do is when I go over this area, instead of going around like I normally would, I'm just going very carefully up and down so I don't move it around. These purples are very nice, and the color kind of softens out as you're using them and they dry. We're going over it with our gold pen, so if we don't end up, if that line moves a little bit, it's really not a big deal. But over here on these areas, you can just, I usually go one way circular and then the other way. And you're definitely going to get a nicer impression if you're using a brush versus a sponge. It's just going to get into all those little areas. And they seem to really wipe off quite nicely. So I don't think you need to have a brush for every color. Just a brush for each color family. I do kind of like having the little small brushes. I have the Tailored Expressions mini brushes, and then I have some larger brushes just for little areas. And this is always fun too when you do the reveal. I had tried doing the reverse foiling on some Yupo paper just because it's really nice and shiny and the foil sticks really nicely to it. And so that was working great without the shim. But I didn't always want to have to use Yupo because it's very expensive. And then I did hear someone say glossy. I thought too that the tonic black, there's a glossy, and there's a few other glossy cardstocks, and they would be fun to try. So we've done that second one, and then before we move our stencil, we are going to add in our shading with our third. So this one here is Grape Agate. So again, we'll just do that in the center. Here's my little small brush, which we can use just in the center. You can see how nicely it gets into those areas. If you have some detail areas that you want to get into. And I think that the stenciling is so relaxing when you're just, doing it and enjoying the process and enjoying the colors. And you could do, you know, a flower background in 5 different colors and then have make a set of like thank you cards, and they'd all be in different colors. So we'll give our background a little wipe. And 2, when you're cleaning stuff, you just want to be conscious that you're not catching anything when you wipe it off. I don't worry if there's any little pieces or little stains. I am absolutely not worried about that. So then we've got this little middle part. This one, we will continue on with our 3rd darkest, and we could use this or our small. I like how they've designed this centerpiece. Okay, so we'll do that. And what I try to do, if I'm moving to a different ink, I try to put the cover on the ink that I'm not using. This is the darkest one, Plum. Because when you're kind of busy blending, sometimes it's easy to forget which ink you're using. Okay. So that's the center of the flower that's on the far right. And then we're going to go back to our 3rd purple, and we're going to do the centers. So this will do the centers as well as the leaves. But what I'll probably do is do the center, and then I might have to wipe the stencil, give it a wipe. The purples are very nice, aren't they? I've really been using purples a lot more and really liking them. So just coloring in the center, and I like that, you know, they've added the leaves on the same layer of stencil, because you definitely have room to do your centers and then do your leaves in a different color. Just because something is on the same layer of your stencil doesn't mean you have to do it all one color. So even if you have a stencil that's not a layering stencil, you can mix up your colors. So if we want to come in, actually let's do our shading with the darkest one first. It is a royal color. And I'm just going around the edges just to give that effect of shading. So that's our purples done. I don't necessarily want to get purple into my leaves, and I don't want to wipe the wipe over the part that I already stenciled, or it's going to make my paper wet. So I'm just wiping around it, and then I can just take a dry cloth and wipe that off, and I don't have to worry about any transfer of ink. So then we are going to come in with our blue. We could use green, but I just thought, why don't we have blue leaves? I thought they looked pretty. We could definitely go with a traditional green. Now the leaf stencil is only 1 layer. So this is where you can decide, you know, do you want to go dark for your leaves? Or do you want to go light? We're going to use our gel pen over. So I think, you know what, we're just going to go with those first 2 inks. And this one here is called the Lapis Lazuli. That's the pack. I really love these colors. This one, okay, Rosie, thanks for popping in. Thanks. This one is Iceberg. Again, I've got my blue brush, and I just want to make sure there's not like a ton of blue that I forgot to wipe off, and it looks like it's fine. Doesn't matter that it's stained. So we are just going to ink up our leaves. What's everybody been up to this week? Busy. I feel like I have been very, very busy. And I'm looking forward to just relaxing a bit on the weekend. We are going to put up our tree. We have decorated for Christmas, but we're going to put up our tree on Sunday, and my oldest daughter is going to come over with her husband, and we are going to have some snacks and play Christmas music and maybe even make some ornaments or something. Just do some fun Christmas stuff. So that will be nice. And yesterday, my 15-year-old daughter, Amy, she wanted to bake some cookies. They have a little thing with their homeroom teacher who they get to see each day, which is nice. It's called their TA, and so the TA has started a TA treats. So anyone who signed up for TA treats can bring in a treat that they've made, and then gets to share in the rest of the TA treats for whoever brings them in the next week. So she made chocolate chip cookies last night. This one is Eastern Sky, and they are so good. And the recipe was amazing. Anyway, so she took them in and she texted me that everyone loved them. I think I'm going to go in with this smaller brush, and I'll just make sure there's nothing really coming off on that, just to get the details. And Lorraine's been busy at work and meetings in the evening. That's busy for you. Erlene's planning cards for a ladies group. That's nice. Are they Christmas cards, Erlene? And Diane does a fresh tree, so not until the 10th. Yeah, you don't want to put them up too early. When I lived in Nova Scotia, we always had a fresh tree. Like you never even heard of a tree that wasn't live. And I think because there's so many forests, and to get a fresh tree, it was like, I mean, this is 20 years ago, but it was like $20. And you got this humongous tree. And yeah, you couldn't put it up too early or the needles would all fall. But a fake tree to buy a nice one was really expensive. So we just always had a live tree. And when I moved here out west, it's the opposite. And so to buy a nice live tree is really expensive. So I've always had an artificial tree since I lived in Alberta. It's just funny. Not $20 anymore, I'll bet. Hi, Judy. I'm just going to give this a little wipe off and be careful I don't catch anything. So this is pretty. You could totally leave it just like that. But I thought, why don't we zhuzh it up a little bit? And we're just going to add some details with some, you can still leave that on there, I guess, with some gel pens. So I grabbed some pens that I had. These ones are Cricut ones, but I did see that there's some really beautiful Altenew ones in the store if you don't have a gold, silver, and white pen. Thank you, Judy. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit down for a second because I stand here and then, but if I'm trying to color or write something, it's kind of hard to stand. So I'm just going to make sure I can see your comments. Your city mulches them, and they offer free mulch to residents in the spring. Very nice. Fun times with the family, yeah, no kidding. Oh yes, Tamara, $5 to cut down your own tree. And are you guys going to do that again? So because, I'm just going to make sure we can see everything. Okay, because we're going to add a few splatters, we want to kind of think about our layers, and we want to do the pen on here first. And basically all I did was outline any areas. So I'm not even being super careful because I think we have this stenciled look that doesn't have to be exact. Just like if you stamped over it, it might be offset a little bit. So you don't have to be super careful. Your mom wants to come. Oh, nice. And is she going to stay for all of Christmas? That will be very nice. Yes, we have decorations up already. Erica really wanted the elves to come. So she decided that if the decorations were up, not the tree, but just, you know, we have lots of decorations that we put up. If the decorations were up, then that meant the elves could come. So she's been writing notes to the elves. The elves almost forgot to move this morning, but realized at the last minute that they were in the same spot. So they quickly were able to find a spot to move to. Even though I think she's on to them, but she likes playing along. So she built a little house for them, and they've got a couch and an area for TV viewing. So she puts in her phone at night, and they, you know, will watch a movie on Netflix. And then she'll check and see what movie that they watched. And they have a bookshelf. Hello, Irene. How are you? The endless unpacking, yes. Do you still feel like you're unpacking? It's hard to get everything unpacked. So of course you don't have to do this step, but I think it just adds a little bit of interest, and you almost kind of get that foiled edge look. You could also trace your stencils if you were worried about kind of going out of line, but I don't think that even if you go off a little bit, I think it's fine. You can go over it again. But all in all, it's going to look really good. So our little sheet that came with this kind of showed you what it would look like if you had that foiled plate. And so I'm pretty much just kind of following along with that. Here I added some white instead of the gold around the edges. But I think you could do either one, or you could outline this in silver or white, or if you just had, you know, a thin marker, you could do that as well. Oh, the vet. Got home from the vet. How is your pet? We did some foiling, Irene, so you can have a look at the replay if you want to see. How's your foiling coming along? I was telling the girls that I'm using the hammer mill cardstock and adding a shim and letting my plate warm up quite a bit, and then I'm getting a good result, really good result. Okay, so we could stop here, or we could keep going and add kind of this little middle detail to our leaves. I'm just curving this little line that you'd have if you had a leaf. And I don't think you have to be exact with that either. Then, so at the end, I did them in white there. But you're just adding some little doodles. So Erica, I had been talking to the librarian at her school. We're friends, and sometimes I'll go in to volunteer, and the librarian had said that they were going to make some cards, some Valentines, even though it's early, but they're going to send them off to veterans. And so Erica said yesterday, she came home and said that they had made crafts at library, and I said, oh, what did you do? And she said, well, we made Valentines for veterinarians yesterday. Oh, that's very interesting. I think you mean veterans. She's like, oh yeah, maybe. So here I'm going to do the little line that comes from the flower, and I just have a white gel pen, but I'm not sure she understood what veterans, how veterans and veterinarians were actually different. And I'm actually going to maybe bring this in a little bit. So if you had a stenciled background, you could just add some details. It doesn't have to be, you know, specific image, but you can just add details to your stenciling. Kind of like if you had stamped over it. Then we're going to add some little circles. Now you can also go over any parts of your stencil after you've inked them in, and you can go over just like we did the butterfly, and you can add a layer of glimmer paste on the top. Thanks, Irene. She's heartworm negative. Oh, which is huge for a dog coming from Texas. That's interesting. So I'm guessing maybe they normally had heartworm. And then what would you do about that? Is there medication, or there's lots of things to think about when you have a pet. I'm just adding a little bit of detail around, and you can kind of see, like, doesn't that look pretty? And it gives it that shine with that glimmer. You've got a bunch of detail on that. Then we're going to take our little splatter box. And so we've got medieval or gilt. And I think because we have the gold that's around the outside. Mosquitoes. Oh, I didn't realize that. So you just want to hear that mixing ball. Make sure that there's not a whole bunch of the paint at the bottom, that it's nice and mixed. And the medieval and the gilt both have an element of like a, I don't know if it's a mica spray, but it's shiny anyways. And then I'm just going to tap it. So you could, sometimes it's easier if you go in. So this should be your top layer. If you were going to put some, glitter or glimmer paste on there, you would do that glimmer paste before. And it's kind of nice to have it in here because you don't know exactly where this stuff is going to go. So you can see, adds just that pretty element on the back. And we want to add that same color around the end or edge of our card. So when you have your bottles open of your gloss spray, you want to be very conscious of not knocking them over. So this is my piece. This does take a little while to dry. Okay, this is the piece that I have that's a little bigger. I can move this. Now, set that to the side, and then we'll just paint a little bit of this around the edge. So I need to soften my brush. I just have a little bit of water just to rinse off my brush, and I think I just didn't rinse it enough the last time because it was hardened a little bit, but this is a paint, so you do want to make sure that you clean up whatever, so anything on the brush. And I'm just painting around the edge. This is just some 80-pound cardstock. And if you're worried about knocking it over, then you should just spray a little bit on your mat and pick it up from there. So you don't want to spray this anywhere where it's going to get on your phone or your computer or anything, because it's really going to stick. This is a craft mat and it's going to clean up nicely. So after I'm done, I want to put the cover right on and then put that right in my water. If I was spraying through a stencil or something, I'd want to just make sure that I have a bucket of soapy water and just stick it right in, and it will probably stain your stencil, but that's fine. It's not going to affect it. And I think actually Dina Wakely doesn't ever clean her stencils. So if you don't want to clean your stencil, you don't have to, but if you have a, you know, some paint that's in a little bit of a chunky format, it's going to be hard to get it really nice and smooth when you use that for inking. And I'll just bring my heat gun, which seems to be stuck. Okay. Thousands of dollars, that's crazy. My sister had a dog that she had taken from someone because they couldn't look after him anymore, and it turned out that he had all these teeth problems, and so she ended up spending just a crazy amount of money on this dog's teeth because they were to the point where she had to do something with them. They were infected, and it was, yeah, crazy. Well, I'm glad that your dog does not have, and I love the layout that, if you guys haven't seen it, check out Irene's layout in the Scrap Shotz paper crafting group of her and her puppy visit to Santa with the Evergreen and Holly Vicky Bouton products. It's a beautiful layout, Irene. So I'm just going to dry this to make sure that it dries quickly. It doesn't take too long, but because I want to add it to the card, I just want to make sure that it's not going to get all over everything. And if you wanted to just set it aside, then it will dry. And then our splatters as well, because you don't want to rub your hand over when you're putting it on the card and smear your splatters. So normally if I wasn't doing this live, I would probably just set them aside for a while and work on something else. But I'm just gonna make sure, and I can check this by just, you know, touching it lightly and pulling my finger up, and if there was anything that was coming off, then I would leave it for longer, but it looks like it's pretty dry. So we've got, here's a look at the gilt. Isn't that beautiful? That's the one I painted with gilt. It's on the butterfly, and that's a look at the gilt splatters. They are really beautiful. Okay, so let's put on our, make sure that we've got this cleaned off. And we'll glue our background down. And because this is just going to be a base, we don't need to cover the whole thing. And it's kind of a nice way to add a shimmery edge without using, you know, a whole piece of glitter paper or cardstock. That's a little bit pricier. It's an easy, quick way to get that color and effect. Plus it matches our splatters. And we could have our flowers going either way. We'll do it like this. I know there's a bunch of different layered stencils for these Altenew stencils. Okay, and because I still don't want to just rub my hand over the front, I'm just going to turn it over, and then I can press everything down. And that will make sure that's all down. And then we have our sentiment. So if we were doing a whole kind of banner straight across, we could do that. Or we can cut out our sentiment. So we'll cut this one out, and that's the same thing I did here, but I used the negative. And I just kind of made it look like a bubble die cut letter, which seem to be popular right now. So as long as you're taking your time and move your paper, you're going to get a smooth cut. But you could cut it however you want. And then trim away when you get a bit of excess paper. If you just trim that away, that's going to make sure it's not in your way. Has anybody got any Christmas cards out now? I've got a couple swaps that I'm doing, and so I'm going to try and get them out this weekend. All right, so there's our cute little thank you. We'll add a little bit of foam tape. And then I'll show you guys a couple different samples of cards that I have. One with the lunar paste that we did last week, but I hadn't finished off the cards. So I finished them off and was really pleased with how they turned out. Super quick. It would be a really great, quick card to mass produce if you had a bunch of Christmas cards to send out. if you had I just don't have them right here, but those the strips, the 3L foam strips, that's perfect for putting these sentiments on. And then you can just decide where you want to put it. There we go. So we've got both our negative and our positive foiling. How is your foiling going, Diane? I'm going to put the cover into my glue. And then this was the butterfly with the glitter paste and the gilt. And all I did for the leaves was, after I had my stenciling done, I just took a Copic and drew the middle of the leaves in. So just adding another effect. And I used a silver pen around the outside. All right, let me show you those tickets. I wanted to show you the tickets up close. Foiling sentiments on white. So you're good, okay. Yeah, I think if it's a smooth cardstock, it's probably easier than a bumpy one, right? If you're foiling on color. Maybe I should try that this afternoon and see if I come up with anything. Okay, let's move those out of the way. So Lorraine, if you're still there, I think you were asking about these tickets before. These are the 49 a Market Ticket Essentials, and there's a whole bunch of different colors in the shop. So this one is plum, and this one is pewter, but there's a bunch of different colors. Thanks, Irene. And this is what's in your box, because sometimes it's hard to know because you can only see the outside of the box. So this one is a ticket and it's paper. So you can just unroll it and you've got special delivery, photographs, you've got admit one, and it also is perforated in between all these areas. So I don't know if you can see that. So you can pull off the tickets and then you can actually put them back and forth and break them apart. And you have tickets that you can put on. This one is paper as well. So it actually feels like the tickets you would buy in a roll. It's that kind of weight. And you've got 5 cents. Again, these ones, they're perforated. So you can either use them as a full strip as an embellishment, or you can break them apart. And then you have the stamps. I love these stamps. These actually feel like they're a little bit lighter material. And I don't want to pull it apart, but so it feels like a roll of stamps that you would get. Aren't these pretty? So pretty. So that would be the plum, and then it looks like it would be similar for each color. You'd have, yeah, it looks like the images are the same, but a different color. These are so pretty. And here's the roll of tickets. So your tickets and your stamps. I do like that they've added those perforations in there so you can take them apart and still have that ticket effect. And then I thought I would show you this. So this card I recently made for Zebra Pen because I do some stuff with them. So I just used one of their pens that show up on a dark cardstock. But this is the stitching dies. So this one is the Joy stitching die, and this is in the shop. And I actually used a pen that shows up on dark cardstock. But if you used light cardstock and used a marker or a gel pen, that sometimes gel pens work on dark as well. And it actually looks like thread. So it was really quick. I just sat down and drew the lines from each of the holes as if I was stitching. And I've got this really pretty, looks like stitched effect, but it's just done with pen. It does take a long time, and I have stitched this card and love the effect, but I don't always have the time to do the stitching. So I was really excited to find out how this looked. So I'd like to do one in white as well, but it turned out really nice. This one here, these two. Oh, and then the little gems from the inside are some of the Pink Fresh gems, which we have a bunch of colors in the shop. Then we were working on this last week, kind of at the end. I just wanted to show you quickly. It was the poinsettia cluster. So this was the poinsettia cluster. We embossed it in black cardstock and then used the lunar paste, the two different colors of lunar paste. It was the pink and the midnight snack. So prom queen and midnight snack. And just lightly with a sponge, because the sponge is more of a flat edge, pulled that over the raised areas to give this beautiful effect. Then I added on some of these Lucy's cards, gems, and I stamped a sentiment using this Darling Christmas. Thanks, Preeti. Thanks, Cynthia. And I used this little stamp that has the little pine bough or the little needles. And I just went around the edge and I used one of the Distress inks in like a really light purple. And so on black it shows up and it just gives a really kind of frosty effect. So the same thing with this one. This one was the Buried Cotton Easter, and I just pulled the lunar paste over top, added those little pine boughs in around the edge, and then stamped a sentiment in white. And the white is the Hero Arts white. It's like the unicorn white pigment ink, and it's stamped really nicely, and that was from this as well. I think there's lots of images in these Tim Holtz stamps, so these are still in the shop. And if you look under the November 1st, then you'll see everything that's new. But this is the Darling Christmas. There's the other ones as well, and they all have those elements that you could just add around the edges to your cards. Thanks, Irene. So that is what I have for you today, and yeah, hopefully you got some ideas of some things that you can do at your own house. Preeti, I'll check on that Mama Elephant release and see if we're getting any of those in. And I think that's all. We've got our Hallmark Christmas Challenge going on in the Scrap Shotz paper crafting group. So if you have anything Christmas related that you're doing with your cards or your tags or your wrapping, then be sure to link it up to the album to be entered to win a $25 gift certificate at the end of December. Otherwise, I hope you have a great weekend. You'll have time to relax, do some Christmassy stuff if you want to, and just have fun. Thank you guys so much for spending your time with me and hanging out. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Preeti. Thanks, everybody. And I'll be back next Thursday. Talk to you later. Bye.